With my learned colleague outside the Pietermaritzburg High Court, I can confirm that for you we have some 5 or 6 members of the eNCA, 4 of them standing outside the doors, 2 or 3 inside, the journalists beginning to clamour. So we are expecting, you're quite right, Tula says, where any moment now it looks like some kind of formal organisation of where everybody needs to stand, where everyone needs to go, is taking place. Tula says, so that confirmation is there, my friend. I'm sure we're going to see the former president making his way out in the next few minutes. Still got 1 or 2 people, 1 or 2 journalists walking out of the court at the moment. So let me come back to you, Tula says, where we have both the visuals at the doors and that view outside where we see the dancing MK where you are just a few meters away from that. Both visuals are there. You take us to the former president coming out.
It is not insignificant, Gareth, that they are forming that guard of honor. We've seen them do that for former President Jacob Zuma, but also recently in Nkandla, of course, there were those pictures that circulated on social media where they were providing that guard of honor for the now suspended, he wasn't suspended at the time, the now suspended ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule. So the MVA very clear in their position of support for the former President Jacob Zuma, but as well as their support for the suspended ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule. Among the other people who are here, of course, are people such as Carl Niehaus, who is the spokesperson of the MVA. He is here. People such as Tony Yengeni, Bongani Bongo. I think you get where I'm going in terms of the people and their alignment that are here. That guard of honor, Gareth, leads to this walkway, which has got palisade fencing on both sides, which sort of forms a passage of sorts that leads onto the street directly in front of court, which is where the sound that you are hearing is coming from, where the supporters will be waiting in anticipation to hear from some of their leaders. And who knows, if tradition is anything to go by, possibly to even hear from former President Jacob Zuma, at the very least greeting them and waving and just, speaking a few words of greeting. So while we wait for that movement, let's continue to talk to eNCA's Siphamandla Goke. Siphamandla, I want to talk about the judge, Piet Koen, because we got a sense of his tone, demeanor, his style of conducting proceedings, in that he talks. He's not afraid to get involved. He's not holding back. Certainly the whole point about wanting to deal with all the pleadings at the same time instead of dealing with them in a piecemeal approach came from him.
Indeed, he's someone who has adopted an attitude that says, let's get on with it. We've been here before, we are taking forever. Judging by his tone and by his demeanor, you can tell that he wants to get this underway as soon as possible, and I can tell you that moving forward you can expect that he will be playing a central part and a leading role in terms of getting involved. He is not someone who is shy or someone who will try and avoid confronting the legal representatives, be it from the state or from the defense. He is someone who says, listen, let's get this in order, let's deal with this once and for all in a very organized manner so that we don't come back here again. We have issues that have not been ironed out. So I think he is someone who will try and ensure that moving forward all these preliminary issues are sorted before we can get underway, so that once we get underway there will be no delays, or there will be very minimal delays.
And the key trait that I think is coming to the fore very early in this proceedings is what many attorneys that we've spoken to who have appeared before Judge Piet Koen have been telling us, is that he's a stickler for procedure. And that's why he was asking whether it's procedurally correct that we should be even talking about this application and this plea, really, that the defense intends to table around the prosecutor, given the fact that it's actually not been tabled formally, and then saying, I don't want to deal with that plea and the guilty, not guilty plea in a piecemeal approach. Let's consolidate, exchange your documents, your affidavits, come back on the 26th so that we hear the plea around whether former President Jacob Zuma pleads guilty or not guilty to the charges. And also secondly, then we can hear the plea around the prosecutor, Billy Downer. At least we're getting a sense of the man. Advocate Thabani Masuku, he's no stranger to you and I, is he? I mean, he's ferocious in defense of his clients. We've seen him in action before. How did he look inside?
He's fired up. He even told the court that he's ready to proceed. His client, former President Jacob Zuma, is ready to proceed. He said, listen, we've got no intentions of stalling this. We are ready to proceed with the matter. So he is someone who comes up strongly, and he is very, I wouldn't say confrontational, but it's someone who feels strongly about his views and his arguments. And then today, you got a sense that he will continue to where he left off. Remember, he was working with Moses Kakane, senior counsel, and I can tell you that him and Moses Kakane were quite a team. And now that he is leading former President Jacob Zuma's legal team here, he's the one who will be arguing on behalf of the former president. Yeah. He intends to continue on that trajectory. And very interestingly, he had a brief encounter with Eric Mabuza, the former lawyer of former President Jacob Zuma. I heard Eric Mabuza wishing him good luck. And then that was very brief. You know, you can tell that I wouldn't want to say there is bad blood there, but, you know, for people who have worked together for a while, you would expect that that exchange would be at least, you know, sure that there is no bad blood. But they just greeted each other, and then Eric Mabuza wished Masuku well, and then that was it. And for me, that was something very significant, and it was very revealing to say, okay, remember that former President Jacob Zuma's legal team, former lawyers, withdrew probably a month or two ago, but Eric Mabuza had to come back here to formally and place that on record to withdraw, and then the judge granted that he can withdraw formally. I found it strange that they had that brief encounter, and it was as if they've never worked together before.
Sure. So, Gareth, we continue to keep an eye on that passage that leads directly from courtroom A here at the High Court in Pietermaritzburg, and basically it funnels in a way the people coming out to an awaiting scrum of journalists who are waiting to pose questions around reaction and around the issues to do with, you know, for instance, the political issues that do form the backdrop to this particular matter, in that the ANC, for example, is navigating those waters of saying, how do you deal with a resolution that says put distance between the ANC and people who are accused of corruption, because voters see the ANC as being quote-unquote tolerant of corruption, and therefore put distance. But at the same time, you're dealing with the reality that whatever the resolution is, whatever the formal position is from the National Executive Committee to the Provincial Executive Committee of the ANC, members, ordinary members of the ANC and some leaders of the ANC do show up in their individual capacities to support former President Jacob Zuma. How do you harness that? How do you arrest some of the tendencies that the ANC in the province has not been happy with? Siphamandla Goke, definitely a difficult one for the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal to navigate that particular conversation.
Simply because it sends mixed messages to Lasizwe, as you've alluded to the fact that there is a resolution which says we need to put some distance between ANC members and those who are charged and accused of corruption. And inside that courtroom, it's not only former President Jacob Zuma that is accused of corruption. Yes, he is accused number one in this matter. You've got the French arms company Thales accused number two. But you've got some senior leaders of the ANC facing their own legal challenges. The Secretary General of the ANC suspended, that is, I'm talking about Isma Khashule, is also facing his own legal battles in the Free State. You have an NEC member there, Bongani Bongo, who's facing his own legal challenges. You've got people who've got their own political battles, such as Supra Mahumapilo from the Northwest. Now, when you come back here to KwaZulu-Natal, there are other senior leaders of the ANC that are charged with corruption. They include their Deputy Provincial Chairperson, Mike Mabuya Kulu. You've got Zandile Kumede, the former chairperson of the ANC in eThekwini region, the party's biggest region. Now, if the Provincial Executive Committee of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal will approach the officials of the ANC at Luthuli House to say, please get us some audience with the National Executive Committee. We want to plead our case to be allowed to to support the former president when he appears in court. What message is it sending to have Sihle Zikalala here and Mtumseni Ntuli here?
All right, Siphamandla Goke watching proceedings for us. So, Gareth, that's how we're looking at this hour. Still waiting. The flow of people coming out of the court precinct has slowed down somewhat. It has broken the momentum for that scrum of journalists, our colleagues, including Dasan Tathia, that we've been telling you about. But they continue to wait to hear more reaction. For instance, for me personally, Gareth, I would have wanted to know what the ANC, suspended ANC Secretary General, in what capacity he is here. Because you know Ace Magashule. That answer to that could prove to be quite interesting.
Tula Sizwe Simalani, for the moment, thank you very much to you and Siphamandla Goge. We're going to let you both just catch your breath. For the moment, we'll be back there to both of you in a moment. We also